After a flight to Zurich, an arranged car that would drive us to the casino Zurich greeted us. Amunda and I stepped out. Our mysterious benefactor had taken care of the bill. The building was the opposite of what I'd expect of a casino. The beauty of the Monaco casino spoiled me. Elegant architecture to hint the opulence and sin that was waiting within. A monument to greed and desire, both expressed in the building's content and in the domes and spires outside. In stark contrast to Monaco, this was a 4- or 5-story building, rectangular with a sign on the front which read Casino. They lined the outside in lights and lit brightly, but the outside went wholly unremarkable. It almost looked like a bank or apartment building repurposed to a casino. It was the definition of Swiss architecture, function over form, and that was dull. It spoke nothing of what was inside, with lavish furnishings, intricate decorations, and rows of card tables. Through the bustle of the lobby, tourists and gamblers abound. Amunda and I finally tracked down the front desk. One reason I enjoyed Switzerland, because I could speak Italian with a fair chance that the other person also knows Italian, or at least enough to direct me where to go. I explained, my companion and I were meeting someone, an American woman, Samantha Waldrop. She smiled. Allow me. Miss Waldrop is in the VIP lounge. She said she would expect you. She picked up a desk phone, calling someone. She smiled brightly after her conversation in what I would only describe as a sweeter version of German. Someone will be with you shortly. A waiter came to greet us and motioned for us to follow him. As we departed the front desk, the hostess called out, Es hätte mich gefreut. I just waved back as they led us through a maze of slot machines, card tables, and televisions. The odd bar and restaurant sprinkled here and there. Ultimately, we arrived at an area that was far less crowded and secured by a velvet rope and a guard. The guard immediately undid the rope and moved across the entrance, allowing us to pass. Finally, after passing many an empty table in a red and dimly lit room, we were led to a single booth that had a maroon curtain around it. Our escort opened the curtain and bowed slightly, his arm motioning for us to enter the private booth. That's when I saw the raven-haired American girl. She wore a black dress with a bateau neckline, with a black sequined trim. It reached down to her mid-thigh. Over her dress, she wore a one-button coat by the same designer, as the colors matched flawlessly. With a pair of extensive Louboutin black high heels, I was immediately envious of. Say what you will of the French, but fashion was their strong suit, and Samantha wore that French fashion well. A pair of dark sunglasses completed her look, despite the dimly lit room. She turned to us, motioning for us to sit. She had an earpiece in, of some sort, on the phone with someone. Yes, Derek. She motioned to the escort and made 2 motions with her hand, gesturing to us, and the escort vanished in a flash. No, Derek, I'm in Zurich. Yes. Because at this point, I've got to ensure our assets are secure. Given the current economic climate, someone has to. No. I want anything liquid transferred to euros. She growled. Yes, I said everything liquid. I did not stutter. She threw the earpiece to the table, turning to us. Sorry, not everyone shares my vision of prosperity, apparently. I sat down in the small booth next to her, and despite Amunda being further away, her nose curled at Amunda's musky scent, something I was growing increasingly used to, which I considered bothersome. She didn't bother shaking our hands, but immediately began to speak. Time, I'm told, is of the essence. She heaved a sigh. Or at least I'm told this by my master. To be honest, I don't feel the need to rush for him. Aren't you in direct service of a demon? I asked her, smiling. Wouldn't that be disobeying? Samantha removed her sunglasses, revealing eyes which were nothing but a pair of black orbs. Yes, unwilling and willing all at the same time. Her dark globes looked me up and down. Seems to be something you desire. I nodded, reveling in the abyss of her eyes. She placed her sunglasses back on. My journey is rather different from yours. I never sought the darkness. it found me. How so? I asked. My idiot brother bartered a deal with a demon. He demanded wealth. Insane wealth. She sipped bubbling champagne from a thin flute glass. Of course, the demon gave the money to my parents. She took another sip. Who died. Then he died. All in exchange for my soul. Amunda scoffed. Another cannot give a soul that isn't their own without consent. I'm well aware. She took another sip, which I gave. I smiled. So you gained great wealth. Among other obligations, she said, swirling the champagne around the glass. Demons, my dear Bella, don't see us as much more than stepping stones. And the king of all demons, Lucifer, he despises our mere existence. Those who don't serve, Amunda tried to interject. He hates us all, Samantha clarified. She then turned to me. But your desire, Bella, is in line with his, isn't it? You hate your fellow man almost as much as he does. I've never seen such hatred in a mortal before. Dare I ask what brought it on? My smile fell. I led my life for God, instructed by my mother. She was dutiful and pious. My father, much less so. What did he do that was so terrible? Samantha asked. He gambled away everything we had. Then he died, leaving us on the streets. I heaved a sigh. Two nice girls on the street don't stay there long. Soon enough, traffickers abducted us. They raped my mother to death before my eyes. Samantha placed her glass down, removing her glasses. Her onyx spheres had a white glint in them. She reached into a large woven crocodile bag, pulling out a pair of small envelopes. You'll be in the mood for a change then. Change? I reached into the envelope. Inside was a black American Express card with my name on it. In addition, there was a German and Japanese passport, all in my name. Last was a bundle of euros. There had to be at least 5 or 10,000 in there, of varying denominations. Finally was a set of SIM cards and a new phone. The phone was pricey, I could tell for certain, trimmed in gold and had an odd mark on the back. It was a high-end Samsung phone. I turned it over to see some gold inlay under the glass of the back. What's this? I asked. Tools, Samantha explained. Don't worry about any finances. Charge the card. There is nothing in the world you can buy that this won't buy you. Call wherever you want, find out anything you need from the contacts in those phones. She sipped from her glass again. While on your mission, live your best life, because Lord knows, when it's all over, none of us will have a pleasant time. Amunda looked into his own envelope and grinned. Excellent. You've been most helpful. And he left with that. I moved to leave before Samantha grabbed me. Not so fast, she advised. I frowned. What? I can see your true desire, Bella. Her black eyes locked onto mine. Do you truly think it's possible? I smiled smugly to her, holding my hand up, a small flame appearing within. I already have power given by them. Why wouldn't they oblige my deepest desire for my loyalty? Your desire to become a demon, while I understand it, is lofty, Samantha warned. If you fail, I lose everything, I explained. I'm aware. You may also be aware. I have nothing. So what do I have to lose? Samantha was silent for a moment or two. They really took everything from you, didn't they? I returned the favor. I glared at her. As you did. It's that obvious? Yes, I pointed out. The way you explained his death, I grinned. Your parents, your brother, you killed them. Samantha nodded. Yes, yes I did. My parents weren't something I meant to do. My master acted through me. I learned quickly as my father and mother's heart stopped in front of me that someone without a soul is at the mercy of their master's will. I nodded. It's the only reason I haven't offered my free will. Needless to say, Samantha said as she took a sip of champagne, I took my time with my brother. I was free after my parents died, and we were to inherit the fortune he sold my soul for equally. And I'm sure you weren't in the sharing mood at the time, I suggested. No, I wasn't. She finished her champagne. Nor have I been since. You and I aren't so different, you know, I pointed out. Samantha was silent for a moment or two before she faced me again, her black eyes scanning me. It isn't entirely too late. You're young. There's a path to forgiveness. But if you walk this path now, there isn't any going back for you. You think I want to go back to God? I asked, offended. What? Want? No. But your goals are too lofty. You hope to become a demon. With what? Favors? Demons are not the generous sort to share their power with a mere human woman, Samantha warned. I shook my head. It's about proving loyalty and showing them how vicious I can be. That I'm willing to do anything, to suffer any sin, and push past any moral barrier in their service. I grinned. Then someday, I'll be the one offering deals and bargains with desperate mortals. Samantha sighed. Maybe you will reach your ultimate desire. You'd be a terrifying demon. I smiled. Thank you. But if you don't mind me asking, she began, placing her sunglasses back on, why do you travel with that want-to-be summoner? He's my decoy, I explained. As long as I'm with him, everyone will focus on him. Samantha sneered. Then get him clothed in something proper and get him to not smelling like a damp cellar. I nodded and stood up, heading after him. Once I had done so, Amunda turned to me. We have tickets, according to these. He pointed to his phone, showing a flight that left in about 5 hours to Boston in the U.S. of all places. The phone that Samantha gave me soon buzzed, and a message appeared on the screen. Live your best life. On it was an appointment at a store. The name displayed on my phone was Gaito. Gato. I walked into a very pricey-looking store. The racks had dresses from high-end designers and shoes to match. They lined the racks with high-end brands, Gucci, Dolce & Gabbana, Carolina Herrera, Acris, Valentino, Prada. I was in paradise. Prices were nowhere on the products, as this was not the average clothing store. An assistant walked out quickly, heading from the back as soon as I walked in. May I help you? He asked. He was a thin man and wore a very well-fitted three-piece suit. The fabric shimmered in the light as he moved. Yes, I was told to come here, I explained. His expression immediately shifted. Ah, you must be Bella, he extended his hand. A pleasure. I was told to spare no expense for your attire. Please, follow me. I followed, and he brought me behind a curtain, bringing out a tailor's tape. Sizing? I asked, smiling. He nods, taking my measurements. Miss Waldrop has already selected a wardrobe for you. I'm told to send it to your new apartment in Boston. I smiled. Oh? Yes, he chuckled. She's very discerning. I would say so, I grinned to him. I have one dress I'll size for you right away. It should not take long. In the meantime, while you wait, I'll give you a voucher for the closest salon and spa. He finished jotting down my measurements and fixed me with a sly grin. I must say, Bella, you live up to your name. I truly cannot wait to see what a lovely gem like you will look like with some proper polish. You flirt, I laughed. He smiled at me. Perhaps the next time I'm in Boston, we can get together. Certainly, I lied, as he handed me a voucher and his business card. A few hours later, I was sauntering into the airport, wearing a dress that cost more than most people's houses, and a pair of heels that likely cost the same as some poor bastard's car. I was grinning ear to ear. After the salon, even Amunda cleaned up well. We had to go to the airport soon, but I needed supplies. I turned to Amunda. I'll need some reagents, I explained. More shopping? Amunda grumbled. You have that feather, isn't it enough? I rolled my eyes. I'm feeling too naked since the damn priest captured me. Naked? He frowned. I'm not sure what you mean. Just wait here. I stopped by a pet shop. I need to get a few things. I popped inside and purchased a set of feeding mice. Feeding mice are interesting little creatures. If you think they don't know their fate, you don't know body language. They know exactly what their destiny is. I walked over to Amunda. I'll need a minute or two. I then slipped behind an alleyway. Amunda just shrugged and waited. He just leaned against the wall in his suit, an expensive one, and while he refused to have his beard cut, it was at least now looking manageable. The stench was lesser, masked by a cologne. Regardless, the alleyway was a welcome break from his stench. I set the box of mice down and opened it up. The mice clustered together in the corner, fearful, worried a snake's belly would soon be their fate. A weak fire wrapped around my hand, flashing over the little creatures. I was like you once, I explained to them. As I spoke, my intentions flowed from my spirit into theirs, and they stopped their cowering. They preyed upon me, like you. I now call on you to be a predator with me. Give up your bodies, lend me your spirits. Allow me to empower you. One brave little mouse snuck towards me. I grinned and grabbed him with my flaming hand. The mouse squeaked at first, its fur turning from bright white to black, and its body withered in my hand. Soon the flame turned black, and the mouse's mouth opened. A black spirit slid out and coiled sweetly around my hand, coiling up to my arm. So much better than being fed to a snake, yes? I asked it. The spirit, which now appeared more snake-like than mouse-like, nuzzled itself against my shoulder. I looked down to the other 4 or 5 mice. Who's next? I had emerged now with a series of little corrupted spirits coiled about my person, some around my waist, others around my wrists, and one felt rather comfortable around my throat. I would use these spirits to empower my spells. Creatures that know their end is near have little qualms about becoming something more. Even these corrupted spirits would live on as something far more powerful than had they merely returned to the earth. Now they were far more than they ever could have hoped to be, and loyal to me for it. Amunda grumbled. Are you quite finished? I nodded. Yes. Thoughts? I said, running my finger along the spirit that coiled sweetly around my neck. Amunda shrugged. You look the same as you did before. The idiot can't even see the spirits, I thought. How has he gotten this far? When we finally arrived at the gate, I displayed my ticket. First class. The first time I had ever flown in such a style. The woman at the gate looked over my ticket and beamed happily to us. Oh, welcome. You've got the best seats on the plane, she assured. I was unsure why Boston was the destination, but I didn't concern myself with where we were going. I assumed Samantha's master had pointed us in the proper direction, so with my fate cast forth, I relished the experience. I had spent so much time stealing, seducing, and scraping my life together. It was a thrill to be privy to the royal treatment. Oh, Miss BellaDelAvana, you're just in time for priority seating, the woman at the gate said, as she ushered Amunda and I past the gate and through the jetway. Soon I sat in a luxurious leather seat. Amunda sat at the window. A stewardess walked over to me. Miss, would you like something to drink before we take off? Absolutely, I smiled. Whatever is your finest liquor. She beamed. Right away. She turned to Amunda. You, sir? Amunda was nervous, looking out the window. He waved her off. No, that's fine. The stewardess, to her credit, asked, Would you like something to help you sleep, sir, if you're nervous about flying? Amunda nodded. Yes, thank you. A moment or two later, I had my drink, and Amunda had some water and pills to take. I leaned back, watching as people passed my seats by. Lesser people. I had always felt this, but now it felt even more contrasted. None could know the power I had. Not just the money recently given to me by Samantha, but the authority that it brought with it. A deep and contented sigh filled me with elation as I enjoyed the luxury of everything around me. Even the little darkened spirit snuggled closer to me, pleased at my contentment. Then they began to react, not in fear. Dark spirits have little to fear. They reacted as if something tasty was nearby. Shush, pretties, I whispered, but as I looked up, I spotted him. He was wearing a rather simple and drab outfit, almost dirty and unkempt blonde hair. He had tanned skin and vibrant green eyes. Frozen in place, he appeared as a deer stuck in headlights. He was a short man, maybe a hair over 165 centimeters, but not unattractive. My beauty and expensive clothing didn't stun him. Rather, I could tell he wasn't the average person. His eyes were green, so was his aura. Like me, he had companion spirits, but his spirits were all little earthen spirits. They cowered before the dark spirits which surrounded me. I smiled. Oh my. I gave him a sly grin. What do we have here? He gathered himself up and attempted to push past me. With a quick motion, I grabbed him with my free hand. Not so fast there. I gazed at him. The spirit around my neck caressed my lip as I spoke. What's your hurry? Get away from me, witch, the short man insulted. His little outburst barely fazed me. What was it you called me? I said as I concentrated on burning one of his little earth spirits off his shoulder. The spirit around my neck readied itself to leap out and attack on my whim. Release me, he threatened, his earth spirits now rallying around him. How brave. Or I'll turn the silver and gold in your dress into needles. It was nice to know the gold and silver trim in my dress was real. Real enough for the earth mage before me to know and even consider manipulating it. Granted, his little magic tricks would need to get past my own darkened servants to do anything. Unlikely, all things considered. But I did not know this mage. He could do so if he had enough rapport with them. The imagery of my skin being pierced and me burning the boy to cinders before everyone on the plane played back in my mind. If I did that, I wouldn't be able to get to Boston as I was being directed. Playful, I teased. I like that. I tried to think of an insult to befit him, after him calling me a witch. Flower boy. Before we could finish our conversation, the first-class stewardess was there to interrupt us. Excuse me, madam, is this man bothering you? She gave the mage a stern glare. I grinned, amused by someone pushed away from me, as if they weren't worth my time. Better yet, she did so without my request. The world assumed that he was lesser than me, just by our clothing. Sorry, he squeaked, as they ushered him past me. I called back to him before he vanished into the coach section. Be careful in the air, young man, I taunted. We're a long way from your terra firma. I glimpsed something strange as he departed. A powerful earth spirit was being carted behind him, and I glared at what could contain such a thing. Behind him was a rather large rose in a glass case and a flower pot. The rose wasn't a normal flower. Pulsing within it was a powerful life force, some kind of empowered earth spirit with incredible potential. A smile grew over my lips. I wondered, I could corrupt a spirit that powerful. Did it have a will of its own? What could I do with a spirit that strong? He was in the same plane we were in, so all I had to do was spot him come out. Catching the little thing shouldn't be hard. I put it out of my mind for now, considering how I'd take that rose from him and see about corrupting it for my own purpose. I still recall waiting for him to come off the plane at the terminal, Amunda impatiently waiting behind me. We should pursue my demon. She must be here, Amunda grumbled. I did my best to stop myself from slapping the crap out of him for referring to her as his demon again. We'll get to tracking her soon enough. I want to grab that mage's little flower. Tracking her. Right, Amunda trailed off. I snapped to him. Master, I began. You can track her, yes? You've had enough rest? Amunda turned to me. She's cloaked, he explained. Cloaked? Amunda nods. Yes, I cannot sense her. I felt her power briefly, but the little minx is likely posing as a human, and doing so very well. I could feel my blood pressure rise, and I considered burning Amunda on the spot. Suddenly I heard a familiar voice scream, Allahu Akbar, at the top of her lungs. The entire terminal turned into an absolute madhouse. People panicked, some dove to the floor, others scurried out of emergency exits where they could. I spotted a woman in black robes being tackled by several officers, and recognized her from the Vatican. "That's the nun," I shouted. Amunda nodded. "She must be—" He coughed as someone knocked him to the ground. I looked around, frantic to find her, but in a sea of faces I saw no one familiar. My search wasn't in vain, however, as I spotted the mage rushing out a side emergency exit. I pushed my way past a few people and forced my way out the same exit, hoping I could find the little bastard. This proved difficult in my stylish heels, and I tumbled to the side a few times as I struggled through the crowd. What I came across wasn't something I expected to see from the boy. A police officer of some sort had tried to stop him. Why, I wasn't sure. But wrapped around the officer's shoulders were roots jutting out of the ground. I tucked myself behind a pillar and peeked out from behind the wall to spy on what was happening. The officer screamed in pain as the roots dislocated his arms, pulling him down into the ground. But beneath the officer wasn't soft ground, but hard concrete. I flinched as I watched the man's kneecaps burst and his legs folded at an unnatural angle. Despite the spectacle of blood and gore before me, however, I was more interested with the plant the mage has. The rose that accompanied the mage was conscious. It moved inside of the glass as if it were an animal, and I swear I could make out a face at the base of its flower. How powerful a mage was he? More screaming from his victim brought my attention back to the man who was now being dragged into the earth below him. I could see the roots empowered by incredible spiritual energy, flowing from the mage directly into them. They swelled in strength and force, and ripped the man's flesh down beneath the ground, his screams stopping only as he slipped under the soil. The mage appeared shocked, though I was less surprised. Earth spirits, as with most spirits outside of holy and dark, are natural. They don't care about the life of the man. To them, his flesh hasn't changed state whether he's alive or dead. An earth spirit might find a dead corpse a better place to grow a fruitful plant. As if on cue, a sapling sprouted from the ground where the guard once stood. It appeared to be an oak tree, and as it grew, I heard a snapping noise I was rather familiar with, the sound of a jaw as it dislocated. As the snap occurred, the mage removed a ring from his finger, and its power was clear. The spirits calmed almost immediately, but I could sense power pulsing from the ring. That power vanished as he placed it into some kind of bag. What was that ring? Some kind of philosopher's stone? Something that could empower magic so drastically. I had to have it. This mage was someone I needed to exploit to the fullest. That was clear to me. I pressed my back to the wall, and I looked down at my dress. The threat of turning the borders of my dress into needles wasn't just idle chatter. Was the mage caught off guard by my presence? Did he spare me merely because there were others around us? Should I be following him instead of Amunda? "Oh my God," the mage's voice said in despair. His reaction added doubt to whether he'd been keen on making me into potting soil, as he did the guard he had just mulched. He didn't know his own strength, that was certain, yet he knew enough to be wary of me. I heard a muffled scream and glanced upwards to see the mage running off with his potted plant. "Damn it," I growled. But the muffled scream continued. It was coming from the small sapling.